Welcome everyone to another NASCAR Heat Evolution setup video. This video is going to be about Darlington. That's right, the lady in black, and boy does she bite hard in this game. Let me start by saying that if you have not run this track yet in the game, the track is difficult enough in and of itself to run in any game. But in this game, there are potholes on the track. And those potholes are most prominent off of the exit of turn 2 and the entrance of turn 3. Now, those are bad areas to have potholes because the entrance of turn 3 is where you're going to be doing braking. Depending on how you decide to run the track, you might be doing heavy braking or light braking, but you're going to be braking right around the pothole. So that's going to make things interesting. And then off of turn 2 is narrow enough as it is, so you have to be really careful with how you hit those potholes. Or, sometimes you'll go over them and it'll be no problem at all. Other times you'll go over them and it'll either shoot you into the wall or it will shoot you into the inside wall after you spin out. So you have to be careful and really observant about where those things are and how you touch them. So before we get into the setup itself, let's talk lap times for the AI. They will qualify on the pole at max difficulty at around 29.8 to 29 seconds per lap. The setup I'm showing you today, I ran a qualifying lap of 29.63 seconds. So you can see we've got a few tenths in the bank against the AI, even on qualifying. So under race conditions, they'll be probably at least a half second per lap slower. So we're a good bit faster than them. If you are able to run the 29.6s and 7s with this setup, then I would recommend you not use the max difficulty AI, but rather to go to the track, get the 105 elite status, then turn the AI to auto plus 2s if you want to have somewhat of a good experience with the AI. Let's go ahead and get into the setup itself. We'll start with shocks, and then we'll immediately go past the shocks because they are 10s across the board, as is normal for my setups. Left weight is maxed out at 54.2%, which is standard, considering that, yes, we're on an oval and we're turning left all the time. So front weight, here's where things start to get a little different than most of my setups. Front weight is higher than normal. It's at 51%. The reason I did that, if you've seen the Talladega setup video, I did something a little different there as well. I wanted to move some weight forward to stabilize the car. These corners are very tight, but they're also very fast. So I wanted to give some stability to the car because the last thing you want to do is be turning right going around Darlington. So moving some weight to the front will help out with that. If you find that the car is still too loose for you, feel free to move that forward even more. Wedge. Normally I like to go above 50%, but in this case, along with some other variables such as the front weight being changed, I needed to lower that to 49%. That helps the car to rotate, and particularly rotate quicker, because these corners require that the car rotate in a hurry to keep up your speed. Now, front weight is different here. And the reason why I made it different, if you've seen previous setup videos, you'll know that with the exception of Talladega, I have kept these at the minimums of 4 inches each. In this case, I've raised the front up to 5 inches and the rear to 7 inches to show you, number one, that there are different ways of accomplishing the same goal. You can go fast with many different types of setups. It's not just one. There is no one single best setup. And then also at this particular track with the potholes, I wanted to try this to see if I could raise the car up off the ground enough to miss the potholes. Now for me, I didn't really see a whole lot of difference, so I'm not sure it's making any difference. So feel free to play around with these numbers, raise the front up a little bit, lower the front some, and same thing with the rear. See what you prefer out of this thing. And by all means, if you want to run 4 inches in the front, 4 inches in the rear, as I've been doing with the setups, that'll work as well. So again, I just wanted to show you there's a little something different. This is a little bit more stable setup, a little bit more downforce, more than likely is what the game is doing. And so it's just something else to try out. Moving on to the springs. The front springs, 1,200 pounds on the left front, 1,000 pounds on the right front. Again, if you're not familiar with why I would do that, the stiffer left front than right front means that the car will turn a little bit better on corner entry. So it helps you get down to the corner a little bit better, a little bit faster by using a stiffer left front than right front. In the rear of the car, a little bit different than normal. Normally I would go with 400 pounds on the left rear, 500 pounds on the right rear. In this case, I dropped the left rear a little bit to help compensate with some of the additional front weight as well as the adjustments in ride height. So this dropping the left rear helps the car to turn a little bit, particularly from corner off. Moving over to the tire pressures, only 10 pounds of split here. Again, this is more for stability purposes. 25 pounds on the left sides and 35 pounds on the right sides. If you want the car to turn better and you want to get more speed out of the car, which is most definitely there. My 29.6 second lap, which you're going to see at the end of this video, is by no means all the speed that is at this track. So feel free to either reduce the left sides and or increase the right sides. The more difference you have between left side and right side pressures, the more the car will want to turn left. Cambers are the standard maxed out 10 degrees on left front, negative 10 degrees on right front. That gives us maximum grip through the corners from my experience. Front sway bar is at 1.5, which is a standard setting for me. It just seems to work and it feels right for me. Feel free to adjust that. If you lower that number, then the car will tend to rotate better. In the front end will get more grip. If you increase this number, the car will tend to be tighter. Rear sway bar, I don't tend to use simply because it tends to make the car rotate better in the rear of the car, which is good. But for me, based on the other settings I use, it just doesn't work that well. It tends to get me way too loose. So moving on to the track bar, left side track bar is a little bit higher, a ½ inch than the right side. And the reason I did that is, and the way I approach track bar in general, is to raise the track bar to a level that gets the rear of the car to rotate the way I want, particularly on corner exit. And then the way I determine what splits is going to be is by how the car is rotating on corner entry through the center, and then how the car rotates on corner exit. In this case, I needed a little bit of help carrying speed into the corner, and then the car wanted to get a little bit too loose coming off the corner, so that's why left side is a little bit higher than the right side. The brake bias does come into effect here because I use the brakes going into turn 1 and into turn 3. Going into turn 1, it's a very light touch, basically just to scrub off a little bit of speed and help the car to rotate. And then into turn 3, it's heavier braking because I needed to slow the car down because it's a much tighter radius, much smaller corner. So play around with the brake bias. If you find that the car just will not turn when you're on the brakes, then lower that number. If you find that the car is getting loose under braking, then try raising this number. Grill tape is at 0%. Wheel lock is at 10 degrees untouched, and steering offset is the same as what I found recently to be a very good balance for me of 0.125. Now, if you're having trouble with the car pulling too hard to the left, particularly on the straightaway, then there are a couple of things you can look at. Number one is the steering offset. Increase this value if the car is pulling too hard to the left, see if that helps. Also with the camber, reduce the camber for the left front and or right front, and that should also help with the pull to the left. Gear settings, I did not touch actually from the default here. The 3.50 rear end ratio seemed to work well for me. So I left it as is. It gets a lot of RPMs as normal. If you want the car to maybe rotate, maybe drive a little easier, lower that rear end ratio to a 3.3 or a 3.4, and that way you'll turn a fewer RPMs, which tends to help the car to rotate. So hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for my qualifying lap around Darlington, which is at 29.63, and stay tuned for more NASCAR Heat Evolution.